Okay, First Lady Shah. First Lady Shah would like to know, how good is a cheetah's eyesight? It is excellent. Now, it's not like our eyes, they can't really see details, but their distance vision is incredible. And their eyes are designed to pick up movement. So even the slightest flick of a gazelle's tail at a kilometer, they'll be able to see. Sorry, I'm just trying to spot them now. Oh yeah, they're coming out exactly where I thought they would. Haha. Isn't that perfect? They might, as I said, I think they might. It is still quite hot. Might flop down a little bit, but often when they're moving now, the others will get the other one who's flopped down moving again. Let's just see what happens here. Now, of course, we spend a huge amount of time with cheetah here in the Mara, and particularly with these the fast five boys. And almost all the cheetah, without exception, when it comes to nap time at night, so when they bed down for the night, when it's properly dark, none of them will ever sleep in a thicket. We'll find them sleeping in thickets during the day when it's hot, especially a little croton thicket like that. But at night, they always sleep out in the open. And why do you think they do that? Hashtag Safari Live. Why do you think cheetah always try sleep out in the open at night time? I want to hear your thoughts on that, please. Hashtag Safari Live. Okay, well, we're going to stick with the fast five. Hopefully they don't nap for too long and they keep moving and looking for a late afternoon snack. And strangely enough, the one thing I really want to see cheetah try hunt while I'm here in Kenya is the big feathered creature that Rolf has.
Well, thanks, Brent. And while you're going from the fastest land mammal to one of the fastest birds on the ground, I would definitely say that an ostrich is probably the fastest ground bird. We do know that the fastest animal on the planet is that of the peregrine falcon, who can go faster than terminal velocity, and I believe they can reach speeds of up to about 150 to 160 kilometers an hour, which would probably be in the region of 120 miles an hour, somewhere there. But here in Afrikaans, in South Africa, we would call them volstruis, and in Swahili, here in Kenya, they call them mbuni, and en français, c'est un autruche. But wonderful to just see them with that lovely backdrop of that savanna setting, and also the Olololo escarpment. They're all just going about picking at some of the seeds on the tip of the grasses, just moving through. Remember, ostriches are a true desert animal. They can live their entire life without having to drink open water. They can get all they need from the moisture in the vegetation and things that they eat. Ostriches are not very picky about what they do eat. They pretty much eat whatever they come across. When it all gets thrown back and then eventually all swallowed down, you can see those big balls going down the neck. But they don't have hollow bones like your other birds do, so they've evolved now for a purely life on the ground. They cannot fly, so they're not the largest flying bird. The heaviest flying bird that we have is the Kori bustard, but the ostrich being the largest bird, however, it is now flightless. Very fast runners, however, almost likened to that of road runners. Meep, meep, getting away from the coyote, slightly different, but very large frame regardless. And it's quite interesting that their meat is red, like antelope. Now, Wendy, you want to know if I've seen any ostrich chicks in the Mara? Wendy, I haven't seen in the Mara as of yet. So I haven't seen any chicks here, but I have seen many, many, many little chicks in South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, which is the area that I have frequented over the last 20 years in my professional guiding career, but not yet in the Mara. But I think these males, they're looking like that one in the picture now is a female, very drab brown. And as we pan across, you might get to see the males who are very black and then that very contrasting white color. They're also starting to get that pink color on the front of their legs. And that's part of their breeding plumage. And it almost looks like they're sunburnt very badly, but it's all part of their yearly cycle, and they get to go pink like that when they're trying to attract females. And so from the largest bird that we have to the largest mammal, let's send you on down to South Africa and James, who's got some of my favorite animals.
Right, we're still here with our elephants on foot, and we've got a little bit closer to them, probably about 50 meters or so. They've got no idea we're here. Herbert, who is on our sort of tracking duty, guard duty today, just sneezed so loudly that I nearly went deaf, but somehow these elephants didn't hear us, thankfully. I nearly jumped clean out of my skin. Anyway, I think this is probably going to be the last view we get of them. They're just going off into a thicket. They keep feeding, they keep stopping at every marula tree, and I think that's what they stopped at now. Just picking up some marula fruits. Hello, Willow. You're just 3 years old, and you want to know if the elephant trunk is bigger than you. Willow, yes, a big elephant trunk is much bigger than you. Can you believe it? Apparently there's a nice view from here, with Mr. Sneezy over here has got a good view for us. Thanks, Mr. Sneezy. I've got a cameraman who's behaving like an acrobatic clown, and a security detail who's got some form of dread disease. Isn't that wonderful? I mean the elephants. There'll be just a little bit of scuffle between the youngsters in the herd. Every so often they'll get upset with each other and irritated. There's another one coming, apparently. I'm just going to move behind Senzel here. Stay there, Senzel. Jared, do you want to know if we're safe being this close? Jared, we are, because they can't smell us, and we're keeping a very, very careful eye on what they do, and we have a planned escape route. Senzel, they're coming. There are more of them coming across the drainage system there. There we go. So now we're losing our cover slightly, so we're just hugging ourselves in to the bank here so that we form part of the contour. And our escape route is to the other side of this little drainage line, this little dry river, where there is some sort of steep banking that an elephant, if it wanted to climb, probably could, but they would avoid doing it if it gave us a height advantage over them. And all the time we're paying attention to where the wind's blowing. Are there other ones around? Because while there's only one herd that we can see here, there could be many following. And in fact the herd could easily have split up. Watching where we put our feet, making sure we don't stand on anything that will make a noise. And making sure that we don't ever get complacent. Complacency out here is a great, great enemy. Now, Scarlett, you say, could I describe the feeling of being so close to the elephants? I'm trying to find... Ooh. Okay, we're being looked at now. I'm just going to move back a bit. Scarlett, I'll tell you now. One of them is just facing us. I don't know if she's seen me or if she's just looking this way. It's the big bull, actually. I think he's just looking this way. I don't think he's seen us yet. Scarlett, the feeling for me is one of connection, which I've said before to some of you. When you're on foot with an animal like this, that could crush you like a worm if it wanted to, it's a cracking of the shell, the human shell, that separates us from the wild. And the great joy is the subsequent feeling of connection with the wilderness and something completely wild. And there's an element of fear, absolutely, but there's an element much more so of this wild connection. And you know, there are so many emotions that go with it. I keep coming back to that quote from a Native American who said to a youngster in his grouping, he said, you know, the wilderness will kill you just as soon find you. The elephant is now shaking the marula tree, the big bull. Can you see that, Senzo? And what that means is that while we derive our lives and our joy and all sorts of other positive things from the wilderness doesn't actually care about us any more than it cares about the... Oh, there's another one coming. Come this way. Come this way. Come, quickly. Come down. Come here. It's okay, Senzo. It's alright. Just slowly. Just come this way. Come, Senzo. Right, now this is what I was talking about. So what we're doing there is just moving away. Come up here. Let's just move away. They're not shouting at us. They're now shouting at the elephant who's just arrived. I just want to explain what happened there. Just come over here, maybe we get a little view of them. So what happened there was a young bull came following along the herd, and then he saw us while we were watching the herd there, and we saw him coming, but then he saw us. And what he did, there they go there, they're moving up now, and what he did was he came towards us in typical young bull fashion, and Herbert just stood his ground there and waved his hands once, and the elephant moved away. And that's not ideal, not because we were in danger from a young bull like that, because we had a planned escape route and he was a young bull, but because he's now got a bit of a fright, which isn't ideal, but he was testing himself, so that's okay. Just let me finish quickly what I was going to say. In the same way that when we watch something like the topi we're watching with the cheetah musketeers, the wilderness seems not to care about those topi, nor does it seem to care about the termite that gets eaten by the yellow-billed hornbill. In the same way, it doesn't care about us. So we are completely vulnerable out here, although the wilderness, of course, feeds that termite, and it feeds the hornbill, and it, of course, feeds the cheetah that eat the topi. So it's a real kind of conflicted, amazing suite of emotions that I feel when I'm on foot with an animal like that, that, as I say, could squash me like a worm. The idea, though, is not to develop that feeling. The idea is not to be in a position that you feel that kind of adrenaline fear, because that then puts you and the animal at threat. But it just does sort of make that crack and allow us to connect with something much wilder than ourselves. Isn't that nice? What a fantastic sighting. That was just fantastic stuff. I've now got Herbert in hysterics. I'm not sure why he's laughing so much. I think he's laughing because Senzo nearly hanged himself on a tree. He got his aerial caught on the tree as he was trying to escape. All right, let's go back across to Noelle. You see the nervous giggles that are coming now, and find out how her elephant is. I'm not sure she's still with it.
James, I've left my oh sorry guys. I've left that elephant. He was busy but smacking his head on the tree and letting marulas fall and then wandering around in a circle around the tree. And I'm glad I did, because the male leopard tracks that I found this morning on the southern side of Chitwa, someone else is following up on there. And then at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock this afternoon, one of the guides from Chitwa saw a young male leopard just in this area. And now we have young male leopard tracks. Could be Tamba, but I'm pretty sure it's Hasana. Here we go. How's this one, Ferg? Or is that plant in the way? Okay. So these are much smaller than the other ones we had. Okay, the other ones we had would have been to here. Alright, and much wider as well. So this is a young male, and moving in this general direction. And he's pushed into the soil here quite a bit. So I'm thinking that these are not from 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock this afternoon. I'm thinking that they're from earlier this morning, and that he's sort of wandering in this area, which is what Hasana really enjoys doing. And this riverbed is a very good place for him to be, to do this. Sorry, there's also some baboon tracks that caught my eye. So what we're going to do, we're going to head down, I'm going to check in here, and then we're going to come up and come around and sort of loop and see what we can do. And hopefully we manage to get a rose-edited cat for our Catter Day. And then for anyone that's new with us with Safari Live, we have days that are affectionately named Feline Friday. And then Catter Day is Saturday, but with cat on it. Oh, Wendy. And that's where those names come from, and it always gives me a little bit of a giggle. So you all can help me look for a little while, and we can see what we can come up with and what we can find. Now, we've had a little bit of rain, Chitwa more than Djuma. So again, for anyone that's new with us, we talk about Chitwa, we talk about Djuma, we talk about Torchwood and Biffelhook. These are all names of different farms that used to be, some of them were split apart from each other, some weren't, but they all basically have different owners, and there's different amount of vehicles that are allowed on them at certain times. It's called traverses, and that's where we talk about and what we do. So I think, because we're going to have to sort of circle around ourselves for quite a bit, let's hand you over to Brent and the Mara, who has some actual cats for Catter Day that he can show you, and who are busy moving about. Maybe they hunt for us. That would be fantastic.
Okay, so I've been waiting on the other side of these cats, but they looked like they were heading towards some topi. I just wanted to come see what they were doing, and it looks like they have given up the hunt. I think one topi spotted them, but it's just lying down here. There's 1, 2, 3 I can see. I'm not even looking in the direction of the topi anymore. That is a rock, Adrian, not a cheetah. Come out. Do you see them? There we go. There we go. You got them. There's 2 there. There's a third directly opposite of us. I'm not sure where 4 and 5 are. But I don't want to spend too much time down below here. That might give away their presence. So let me just, Adrian, show you there. There's another one there. And I'm going to go a little bit further forward so you can see. I just want to see where the other 2 are. And there you can see the topi behind. But the topi did spot them as they popped their head up. So there we go, you can see the topi. So what I am hoping is that the other 2, I found I found them. They're actually just here. They were just hiding in the shade of this little termite mound right next to us. A little bit to the right. You come out, keep going. There we go. You see them? Look how they disappear. A little bit to the right. There we go, center. Oh, back. Well, there's one next to the termite mound. There's another one there. Wait, zoom, center frame. There we go. See how they absolutely disappear. You can see how that camouflage works so well. But for the moment they are napping. I think unfortunately for us, they were spotted. Melody is wondering what would happen if the 5 boys met Malika's sons. I think they will disappear at a rate of knots. Yeah, I think they would just run away. And Malika might try run some interference between the males and her young boys, but that time is coming up to, or probably not for very much longer before she leaves them to head off on their own to form their own coalition. James is wondering, why are there more cheetah in the Mara than there are in the Sabi sand? Well, James, there's more ideal, more suitable habitat. The Sabi sands actually has a decent cheetah population. You must also remember that here we are traversing around 300,000 acres, which is twice the size of the whole Sabi sands, all the different properties put together. So we cover a lot more ground, so we do actually see a lot more cheetah. Now, the biggest population of cheetah in the world is in the Greater Kruger National Park, which the Sabi Sands falls within, but obviously different densities. And one of the other reasons is that out here it's just so much easier to spot them with these short grass plains than it is in the mixed broadleafed woodland of the Greater Kruger. Okay, as I say, I don't want to give away their position. I didn't want to stay here too long, so I'm going to move along a bit. Okay. Lazy kitties for the moment. It is still quite warm. The sun is hot. Have a rest before they attempt again. But unfortunately, I think they're going to attempt after possibly we have already had to dash towards the gate to make it home in time. But I will be back with them tomorrow morning, and I'll let you know tomorrow afternoon what they're up to. Okay, so our backup vehicle, who comes and spends from now till 3 a.m. with the cheetah, and then at 3 a.m. I'll be back, is just up there, so I'm going to go have a chat. In the meantime, let's go across to Commander Bond on foot. Oh, 4.
Okay. Now, we are just in some very thick bush still with a lot of wind, and so we're going to be quite careful. Those elephants have wandered off down there, but Herbert tells me there's some eggs around here somewhere, which he is now going to show to us, which will be slightly more calm than the last sighting we had of magnificent elephants and one recalcitrant elephant bull. Where are the eggs? The other side. A lot of you commenting on how brave Herbert was there. Absolutely. Also experienced. You cannot buy experience, of course. The number of elephants Herbert's seen on foot would outnumber the number of breakfasts you've had, I suppose. So I'll just keep going. Apparently we're going this way. I don't even know what kind of eggs we're going to be looking at here. Tiny, you're wondering about ambidextrousness in elephants. For those of you who don't know what Tiny's talking about, basically elephants can be left or right tusked, and so sometimes they'll just use their right tusks more on a tree like this to take the bark off. They'll use their right tusk more until it breaks off. And Tiny, you're wondering if sometimes they might use both. There might be. I suppose that's possible. Here are the eggs, but I don't know for sure. Do you think they were laid here by...
Yeah.
Or do you think they've hatched? Here was a little nest. Oh, Francolino. Little Franklin eggs. This one has not hatched yet, but come and look at the nest over here. I'm going to put it back in there. I think it's hatched. I don't think... Yeah, they've hatched. I don't think they've been discovered and then eaten. Can you imagine the very tiny little Franklin that came out of this egg? Let's just put that one back. And that is the size of them on my palm. So about, well, I don't know, about half the size of a good-sized chicken egg. Huh. And I wonder if this one might still hatch. Melody, you say, why do they lay eggs on the ground? Well, it's a good question. They're not particularly safe here. And Franklins don't roost on the ground. They roost in trees at night. They don't have the kind of equipment, they don't have the feet or the beaks to be building tree-based nests, but these things are so well hidden, often, in amongst the grass or underneath bushes, that clearly it's perfectly safe, because they're some of the most numerous birds that we have here. So although it would seem counterintuitive that a bird should put its eggs on the ground if it could put them in a tree, it seems to be a perfectly workable strategy out here, and there are lots of birds that do it. Even something like a rattling cisticola, which is a perching bird, I mean, they don't spend any time on the ground, will go very low down underneath a shrub and lay its eggs there. So yeah, I guess it also the advantage is that you don't have to spend the amount of time that something like a chin-spot batis might have to take to build a cup nest and go through the whole process of securing it, making sure that it's safe in the tree and that the eggs will stay in it. It's much easier to just make a little scraping in a clearing, and so you can carry on with the important business of eating. So I think that's what happens there. Right, come on, Senzo, I found. We're going down towards the little waterhole here. See if we can't find some tracks there. Tundi and her cub have now not been seen for about 3 days, but we did find tracks of Tundi and cub today, and so they are around. We just have it comes to a question of actually finding the cat, and we don't want them anywhere near the Hokamuri male, the new male leopard. If you've just joined us, there's a new male leopard in town known as Hokamuri-san, and he is taking over Tingana's territory. First Lady Shah, while we walk along here talking about leopards, you say, what do I carry in my bag? Well, I normally carry my mascara, my lipstick, a nice sort of face mirror, a little bit of blusher and some base so that I don't shine too much when I get sweaty. Toothbrush in case we get stuck out here, and well, a sandwich or two in case we have to spend the night out and I get a little peckish. Lady Shah, that's all absolute rubbish. I've just got a camera in here, and I've got my ash bag, which is a sock full of ash. And the reason I haven't taken it out today is that the wind is blowing so hard from the southeast. To take out an ash bag and test the wind direction would be ridiculous. So that's my little bag. Good. On we go. I don't actually wear makeup for these shows. We had to wear makeup, funnily enough, in the for our migration series last year. It was told to me that because we had lighting from the top and I no longer have any hair on the top of my head, they had to put a bit of makeup on. Can you believe it? Made me feel like I was on stage. It was very pleasant. I enjoy that feeling. All right, let's go back across to Ralph Kirsten, who I'm 99% sure has never worn makeup at all.
Thanks, James. Yeah, well, I don't wear makeup, but I can tell you what, these little cubs that we've managed to find have got very pretty faces indeed, and I think they're a lot better looking than I am. But it seems that we've found, I think this might be the Marsh pride. We're right next to the swamp, and so I think it is them. There's lots of very, very small little cubs. There's a couple of females. I'm still just trying to work out exactly how many bodies there are there. We were unsuccessful with the Chitwa boys. We also had a look for those Marsh breakaways, but whether or not this might be them, I'm not quite sure. But there are a lot of cats here. We just can't see exactly how many just yet, because the grass is quite long and most of them are pretty flat. But nice to see the little cubbies running around a little bit. And there's a couple of different ages of cubs as well. Very small ones, not more than a couple of months old. And then there's a couple of older ones, maybe around 3 months or so. And there's an upside down lion. She's obviously a very deep sleep. No movement at all. Is she still alive? Let's check if she's breathing. Very slight breathing there. Yes, she is. She's alive. But like I said, very hot still at the moment. That sun is starting to dip a little bit, so it's beginning to cool off. But they're sitting in a beautiful spot in a very treed or foresty type area, which just breaks off a little bit from the River Rhine area right next to the Mara. This is like a line of trees that comes sort of a little bit away from the Mara River and almost forms a boundary with the marsh or the swamp. Now, Joy in Hong Kong, you want to know if there's a Marsh pride and a Marsh breakaway pride. Well, Joy, as far as I know, and what I've picked up from Jamie and Taylor and Brent and all the rest, because I'm new here, so I'm obviously using the local knowledge, there was a Marsh pride, which was obviously getting quite big, and then there was a couple of females that broke away from that, and hence the name, and that's why they called him the Marsh breakaway pride. Now, I'm not quite sure which group this is, and whether or not that is a permanent split, or if there's some cubs around. They're playing next to the tree there, playing a little bit of cat and mouse. So this potentially the Marsh. I'm thinking more along that line, but yes, there are definitely two sort of groups, and the Marsh pride was getting quite big, and then there was a slight breakaway. But whether or not, as I say, it's permanent or not, we'll have to wait to see. But that's as far as I've gathered from all the knowledge that I've picked up from the different guides that have been in the area for a while. Wonderful. Look at that youngster. It's always nice when there's cubs around, because even when the adults can be flat out sleeping, at least they can keep us a little bit entertained. In between their naps, they just take their little kiddie naps like all the youngsters do, but they're normally quite short-lived, and then they're back to full action again, and then they go down again. It's almost in those little cycles, hey? You see the adults doing a real full sleep, while the youngsters now start getting up to no good, all trying to balance along that one log. It's unfortunate that we can't get a little bit closer to them, but this is a no off-roading zone, so we're not allowed to go in there. But we've got a nice view on them all the same, and there's all sorts starting to happen now. I wonder what they're going to get up to. There's one biting on a branch, probably going to try and take a stick for his trophy. And that female looks very relaxed. And so, well, everyone, I'm not going anywhere. This is starting to hot up a bit with these little cubs, but we'll see what happens. In the meantime, let's head you on over the river to Brent, who's got some of our feathered friends.
How cool is this? There is a female Kori bustard. And she's striding off, but that's not why we stopped. Just following her. Here they come. Come on. Come on. There we go. Look at the little fluffies. Oh, there's two little Kori bustard chicks following her. Isn't that cool? We saw quite a small one, so these are a bit bigger than the one I saw last. But how awesome is that? I could not drive past and not show you these wonderful little feathered fluff balls. You can see how they're almost already getting their adult coloration. That is very, very cool. Hi. How are you? Ah, very nice. Okay, now we're going to keep meandering on for the evening to head out again at 2:30 a.m. But Rolf was just wondering quickly about the Marsh and the Marsh breakaway prides. The Marsh pride currently no longer reside in the Marsh, which is near Musiara Gate. They are in the Morrow North Conservancy. But the Marsh breakaway pride came from when the Marsh pride was a very big pride, and those three lionesses decided the competition amongst that pride was a bit too tough, so they swam across the Mara River and set themselves up in the area they are now in. So that's the Marsh breakaways and how they got their name. Now, I did ask you about why do cheetahs sleep out in the open at night, and I'm sure a lot of you got it right, and you are spot on. It's for safety. They are able to get a good view of their surroundings and are able to see the approach of lions or hyenas, and are able to either defend themselves or move away quickly. Okay, well, there's a lovely little family portrait before we say a goodbye until tomorrow at least. There we go. Off go the little Kori family. Oh, isn't that sweet? So as the Koris walk off, actually in the direction of our camp, Oloshaki, we're going to do the same. We've got to go the long way around, and in the meantime, we're going to go across to Tristan, who's got tracks of, I think we should call him the rehearsal male leopard, I'm guessing. And before I forget, well done on the pennant-winged nightjar, Tristan. That's a great bird for the Sabi Sands. Bye!
Well, exciting news is that we have at least found the tracks for this male leopard that have come out onto quarantine and are now mobile in a sort of easterly direction. So we're going to try and see if we can track him down. It's taken us a long time to try and find these tracks. It's incredibly dense where he was lying this morning, and it's so hard in there that it's very difficult to find tracks. But it's exciting now that we've picked them up. These tracks are quite fresh, so hopefully we're going to be able to find him. I'm just trying to think in my mind where he would go from here. I surmise that he might be heading down either to Gari Dam or to Ingwe Alley, where there's a couple of water points there. So we're going to try and check those areas. I just want to check up ahead where he crosses, but he's definitely still going in an easterly direction, which is interesting because this is now the furthest east I've seen him push since he's kind of come into this area, and definitely the furthest north he's come in terms of close to the camp. So just want to double check where he goes from here. Lots of tracks for people walking up and down, which is, I suppose, par for the course because we've got 2 bushwalks out at the moment, so that could be from this morning. Let's check if he crossed this big main section, because this will be a good indicator as to whether he's here or not. Problem is there's lots and lots and lots of baboon tracks here as well, so I'm trying to kind of look between the baboon tracks, which is not easy. You can see a number of kind of disturbances here, and the baboon tracks are some of them, as well as then footprints for the wildy, because there is at least a bit of extra. No, that's baboon, baboon. So it doesn't look like he crosses here, so that's interesting. I wonder where he could be. He might be right here, just kind of around us, and we've just missed him. Or he could have cut up quarantine. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to double check and see how this all works. But we'll just take a little loop around. Let's just check and see if he's come down this way. No, definitely not. So he hasn't come this way. I'm going to have to go back and just double check on foot. And so while I do that, and talking about being on foot, James is still on foot, and I hope that he's gotten away from those elephants by now and that he is still safe and sound.
Well, I've got away from the elephants. I'm not sure how safe and sound I am. I mean, that remains to be seen, and only really be judged at 6:30 when we go off air. I'm trying to find you some flowers of a potato bush, Phyllanthus reticulatus. This is the potato bush, and it smells very strongly of that take-out joint with the golden arches, whose name we are not allowed to say for fear of being sued. Anyway, that's what it smells like, but they're very indistinct little flowers. Ooh, Senzo, come up here if you can. I haven't found any flowers, but I found something else, which is right. Follow the line of my stick. Do you see it? Yeah. It is a magnificent looking fly. Do you not agree? Senzo, you have to agree with me. Hey? I put my stick down because I thought you'd seen the fly. Can you see the fly?
Okay.
You got it? You see it?
Yeah.
Beautiful fly with a sort of pied abdomen, some copper, looks like sort of pectoral pieces just in front of the wings, huge black eyes, and the best time of the day to find elephants, that too, but insects, because it's quite chilly and they don't really know how to move in this sort of temperature. So what I'm going to do is something deeply illegal, because I'm such a rebellious human being, aren't I, Senzo? Say yes. Yes. There we are. Good. Well done. I'm going to take a photograph. Can you believe it? What a gorgeous creature that is. Senzo, do you think it's gorgeous? You're not sounding particularly enthused by it.
It is.
I feel. Louise, do you think it's gorgeous? Not getting anything from Louise either. Ah, Louise agrees that it's gorgeous. Yes, Louise says she thinks Senzo's disappointed because it's not a lion.
It's got a mane.
It's got a mane. Flower in the bush is the most powerful scent. Well, the most powerful scent probably goes to the rather detestable smell of the silver cluster leaf. They've got really unpleasant smelling flowers. They smell like somebody who has not worn socks and should have been wearing socks. So they really smell like foot cheese, basically. Disgusting things. In terms of the best strong smelling thing, I think, you know, most of the flowers out here are pretty subtle smelling. I'm trying to think of another really powerful smelling plant. It's normally the ones that are unpleasant that are powerful. The red spike thorn, Gymnosporia senegalensis, smells fairly disgusting as well. It smells like rotting meat. Ah, right. Now, Taylor says she loves the smell of the knobthorn. Now, the knobthorn is very attractive smelling, but I'm not sure that I'd describe it as the most powerful smell. I'm very glad that Taylor is in final control. She wasn't feeling so well yesterday. Hopefully, she's feeling much better now. Well done, Taylor. Hang in there. So, yes, knobthorn, very delicious, but I don't think particularly powerful smelling. Senzo, let's have one last look at our fly, and then we'll continue on our way. While I continue with my illegal activities, let us go across to Ralph, who is sitting with the Marsh breakaway pride of lions. He wants to tell you further about their comings and goings.
Thanks, James. I'm not sure which one it is, so I'm glad you know which one it is. The Marsh breakaway, well, I'm not quite sure, but it's lions nonetheless, and lots of little cubbies. And it looks like they're all watching Mom going to the toilet in the background there. At least she's hidden herself a little bit. And they are perking up a little bit as the sun dips towards the horizon. It's getting cooler, and those ears have come up, the heads have lifted, and the yawning begins. But the head goes back down again. But lots of lions around here. That's why I'm leaning more towards the Marsh pride, not the Marsh breakaway, which I think it might be. Because as far as I know, the Marsh breakaway has got 2 or 3 females, but this has got at least 4. I could be wrong though, so I'm just going on what I've learnt since I got here. But we're also in the area where we've seen the Mara River pride. So we've got 3 to think about. Which group is it? And that would be interesting to know. I think Jamie knows the lions here very well, so I will ask her as soon as I can. Okay, well, some information coming through the bush telegraph saying that this is the right area for the Marsh breakaway, but the dynamics here with all these cats would definitely lead us to the answer, but I'm just going on all sorts of random information, so we won't finalize it just yet. Now, Thomas, you want to know if you can identify lions by sight. Thomas, yes you can. Obviously you do need to spend some time with them, but the first thing that you do when you're trying to identify lions is look for any prominent features. So whether they've got any very clear scars, or if they've got any scratches or tears in their ears. That's normally the easiest to notice from afar, and especially when they're lying down or anything like that. Then anything else, whether they've got a big scar over their eye, like one of the musketeers has got, the leader of them, he's got a very big scar over his eye, which makes him unmistakable. Then other features that you might look for, like with the Chitwa boys, one of them has got the end of his tail missing, so very easily identified, as well as being very unmistakable in those kind of situations. And the other 2 males of the Chitwa boys got very black manes, with the one without a pom-pom being a little bit lighter. And then if you still can't see which one it is, then you can do the classic old identification with their whiskers and the spots thereon. So quite similar to that with leopards. However, it is slightly more difficult because the little dots around their whiskers are not as prominent as they are in leopard, but you can still use that as an identification feature if you've got nothing else to work with. But then you've got to see their face very clearly, and if you can get a photo of each individual, it makes it then so much easier, because then you can look at your picture at will. But when you're trying to look at the lines through, you see those little dots by the whiskers itself. You look at that top line on both sides, and you would count them, and then you would obviously mark that as that particular individual, and you then look at the ratio of how many dots there are on the left versus the right, and then you can come to a very clear indication of who it is. But there's not many names of individual lions here, only very prominent lions like Scar and the Chitwa boys, obviously, with them being smaller groups and coalitions, they're very prominent. And then the prides, the females haven't got particular names as far as I know. I don't know of any of the female lions here having names. So we just look at their dynamics, how many females are there, how many cubs are there, what are the ages of the cubs, etc. And then we just look at also where they are, obviously, because they are territorial, so they would generally be in a similar area. Now, Joe, you want to know if the female lions have their own territories? Yes, they do, Joe. And what you can often find is that the prides, which is generally the females with the youngsters, it can be young males included in that, they would have their areas where they frequent and their territories that they move in. Now, then you would have males who would also be territorial, but their territories can overlap different prides. So, for instance, the Chitwa boys, they could be covering a number of different prides and could be fathering a number of different cubs. It all depends. That's why it's important to have a coalition, because then you can actually dominate a much bigger territory. So the Chitwa boys probably covering the females of the different prides, including the Olololo pride, the Marsh pride, the Marsh breakaway pride, potentially even the Mara River pride. And then going on towards the musketeers, they're probably with those Paradise pride, maybe with the Sausage Tree pride, and potentially a couple of others. So you see that those males can actually loop over to different groups of females and their youngsters' territories, which would be totally different to the males' territories themselves. Very interesting, but it all depends on the prowess of the males, because sometimes you can have, if it's just one male lion, he might just be sticking then with one pride of females with their youngsters. But with the coalitions like we've got with the musketeers down there towards the hippo pools and closer towards the Tanzanian border, a nice big group, 3 males, that's great, and very big individuals as well. So they can command a very big territory, as well as the Chitwa boys on this side, closer to the Olololo gate, having this area as their territory as well. Some of the cubs are up. Now, Bob, you'd like to know if lions would use trees to sharpen their claws like house cats would. Absolutely, Bob. They use trees, they use stumps, they use sometimes even the ground, where they will put their claws out and scratch it along, but very often using trees, because they also use that as a territorial marking at the same time. So they'll scratch big visual marks on trees, and that can serve as a real warning to any trespassers that they're around. Now, they'd normally mark with their claws on a tree like that, and then they'll probably urinate on it as well. So they back up towards it and they spray urine on that tree. So when you find big trees like this and you're on foot, you can often go and look around them, and you generally find nice big scratch marks on it from lions. And especially a big group like this, they're probably quite territorial, and they will be marking all sorts of spots. But the males obviously mark a lot more prominently than the females, but the females will also join in that whole territorial boundary, both walking, they do walk their territory boundaries regularly, spraying it, marking it, scratching it. Now, like I said, I think the action is going to start getting more and more here, so we're not going to go anywhere. But what we are going to do is send you on back down south to South Africa into the greater Kruger National Park. And Tristan, let's see what he's been up to.
Well, it seems as though the Mara team are certainly holding things together today. Lots of interesting things happening that side. We still, unfortunately, haven't found any further sign. The last track I've got is cutting straight here into the block, going down towards the dam. But there's so many baboons and impalas and wildebeest and nyala all down at the dam that I'm thinking maybe he's either lying down right here and I've just missed him, or what he's done is he's turned and gone back southwards, which is not impossible, because this leopard, from the times that I have now followed him, is a seriously difficult chap to follow. He goes up and down and up and down all the time. Gene, you're wondering if I know where the new leopard is from. So Gene, no, I don't know where the new leopard is from. We're not 100% sure. We don't know really much about him. And I've tried to find out. I've spoken to a number of different people. but I can't get really any information at all as to where he is, what he's kind of done, where he's come from, how old he is. It's just everybody seems to be at a bit of a loss at the moment in terms of what his actual age is and what he's actually doing. So it's an interesting thing. It's always very strange to get a leopard that nobody knows anything about. It's not very common to have something like that, because generally, you know, the leopards that move in, even the males, come from an area around us, and there's a number of different lodges that are around that are able to kind of tell us when they've got young males that have dispersed. And then when you've got a situation like this where there's a leopard that comes out of nowhere, it's very, very odd. Well, not odd, but I mean, it's unusual. So it's difficult to know exactly what he's about, where he's from, or anything like that. Now, you might be wondering why I'm driving here towards Inga's. So this is where some of us stay, but this leopard track was coming straight in this direction, so I want to just check if he came all the way. Jill, this is well, it's quite a funny question, and you'll hear why now. So you want to know whether Hukumuri is an African name and what does it mean? Right. So Hukumuri, it could be an African name, or it is an African name, but directly translated in the local language here, it means chicken medicine, which don't ask me, I don't know why. There is a drainage line that is in this area named Chicken Medicine, but there is a drainage line that runs through the Sabi sands, so a little dry riverbed that is called the Hukumuri drainage, and this is where he's gotten his name from. But I know in Swahili there's also another word called Hukumuri, but I can't remember if it's what it means. I think it means forge, if I remember correctly. I'm not 100% sure, but that's definitely not why he was called that. He's been named after an area that he was perceived to have come from. It was a misidentification. He isn't the male that comes from there, so he is not the son of the Hukumuri female. He does not come from the Hukumuri drainage, dry riverbed section. It was a misidentification, but by the time anybody realized it, he had already been labeled and had been given this name, and so that's why he's got it. But direct translation, Huku is a chicken, and Muri is muti, or medicine, and so chicken medicine is his new name, which is quite funny if you ask me. I imagine being called chicken medicine. I don't know if that's the best name to have, but well, that's what he's been given now, and so he's just going to have to wear it like a badge of honor at this stage. But I can't see any tracks coming further in. It doesn't look like anything here. I can't see any signs of him walking down further towards Inga's. It looks like he's potentially just cut into this area here. Like I say, that's the last track I found, but I was just checking that he maybe didn't go and decide he wanted to have a pool day today and go and lounge at Inga's pool, because, well, that does happen sometimes. We know that little Shongila and Hosana have been in there before, Karula's been in there, Tandi's been in there, so there's a number of our cats that have gone that way. Right. Okay, let's go check Ingwe Alley, because that sounds like a fair enough place to check, just in case he crossed back over the road and went southwards towards the pans there for a bit of a drink because of all the baboons. And so while I go and check on Ingwe Alley and check those little water points, see if he's maybe had a drink, let's send you back across to Ralph in the Mara. And well, I know he's got lots of things, but I just couldn't hear exactly what they are.
Thank you. Yes, well, everybody, we're seeing glimpses of these little cubs, but they're all chasing each other, playing with each other. They're trying to hide behind the logs, and so they come in and out of view. But we've also got an elephant in the background that has now moved into view as well. And there he is, happy-go-lucky, just drifting along. And I hope he doesn't come towards these lions, because he'll probably have a little bit to say to them. But for the moment, he's quite far from them, so they don't have anything to worry about. He's got a decent set of tusks on him. It looks like they're trees growing tusks. Oh, there's his head. Wonderful. Wonderful. Just between the two trees there. That's actually a lovely picture. Very nice. And so it's been wonderful to spend a little bit of time with this pride of lions. Whether it's the Marsh breakaway, the Marsh, or the Mara River Pride, I'm sure we'll get some clarity from Taylor, so she can let us know when she later she's going to be coming here to this very spot, and then she will hopefully be able to follow them through the night if they move, and then she'll have them first thing in the morning. So we've done our job, at least done our best to find her the best character possible for tomorrow morning. And well, lots of cubs around, that's always nice to have. So hopefully, as I say, with it being non-off-roading area, let's just hope that they don't disappear off into area where she can't follow them. But if they don't do that, well, then it will be fantastic for the morning. Now remember, that's one of the things that we always need to bear in mind, that we have no control over the wilderness. These are wild animals. They do as they please and as their instinct suggests they should. And we're also 100% live. So there's no script, there's no planning. We have a certain amount of planning that we can do, but most of it is logistical. But the rest of it is actually just left to the elements and the wildlife, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, Mandy, you want to know if those cubs could be in danger from that elephant? Mandy, potentially they could, because if that elephant had to come over and get quite cross that he has spotted some lions, as they sometimes do, mostly when they come across lions, especially big bull elephants, they do charge in and try and scatter them and shift them all off. And with there being small little cubs, there's every chance that it could come in and spot one of those little ones and then maybe go over and stomp on it, which I've seen as well. It's happened before. It wouldn't be the first time that has happened, but I'm hoping that he just continues along on his way and off he goes. But that's one of the things, the beauties about nature, is that there's it can be ruthless. So lions can rip warthogs to pieces, which can be quite gory and lots of blood and guts on one hand, and then you can have an elephant coming in and being ruthless with stomping on a little baby cub. So it goes in roundabouts, everybody. Now everyone, it's almost that time for us here in Kenya to start to head on back to camp. So I just want to say thanks for watching for our part. Don't worry, the show continues down in South Africa. And to all the folks on the different platforms that are leaving us, please join us again tomorrow morning. And thanks for joining us once again. My name is Ralph Kirsten and you have been watching Safari Live. Now, I'm going to head you on back to South Africa. You go off then and enjoy. Bye.
Hi everyone, super exciting. We've got monkeys and they're alarm calling actively. We've been circling, looking for this little male leopard. And so I need you all to help me now. I'm sorry for the back of my head. Ferg's also looking. You guys all look. Let's look with the camera. I can hear the monk. Let me just shut off quickly so you all can maybe hear with me. Hear them. They can see this leopard. Now we just got to figure out where the leopard is. Okay, everyone, come with me, come with me. We're on the chase, we're on the chase. We're not far. Sorry, we've been looking for like an hour. I'm going to find this leopard. I'm so annoyed that we haven't found it yet. Okay, there's elephants coming out here just on the right-hand side. Now, I'm just trying to pinpoint where the monkeys are looking because they're going to alarm call and then look to where... We're on the back side of Chitwa. We're near where they put their sort of storage unit for the workshop. I'm going to try not to drive you past there. Can you see? I can hear them, Ferg, but I can't see them. Ah, there. He's looking over here. Okay. Oh, sorry, Ferg. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to shake that screen there. Please excuse me. Okay. So the monkey's at the top there, which means he's looking over here. The elephant has moved this way, down where this elephant is walking. That monkey's looking a little bit farther over here. And we are... I'm glad everyone's excited, and I'm also excited. I'm sorry if I sound a little bit distracted. I'm not distracted from you guys. I just don't want to miss anything. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be looking in the wrong way. I want to make sure that I'm looking here and around. So Ferg's doing such a great job of doing what I'm doing with the camera. I actually think it's going to be just up here and around the corner, but I think because it's taking me a little bit longer than I wanted to spot this leopard, let's quickly go over to James and, oh, that's a stump, and that's why we're going to go to James, so I can see if I can get this leopard for you. Let's go on over to him.
We found Tandy's tracks at a little waterhole back there. Herbie's in front. We think that she's in this thicket somewhere here. He said that the tracks he thought was steaming. That means they were very fresh. And then we heard some francolins going crazy in here. So we're just checking. Now, the last time I was in thick bush like this on the trail of a leopard, it was with Shadow's cub that we thought she was around when she was very little, only about 6 months old, no less than that even. And she jumped out of a tree almost onto our heads because we walked underneath her and didn't see her there. So we're checking in the trees. Go around that way, then. And we are pretty close to Leadwood Drive. This is for Tristan. Close to Leadwood Drive at the bend where it turns from east to north. East to south, sorry. He'll know where that is. Just check early through here. She could easily be in this sort of vegetation up in the trees. She could easily just have lain down so as to avoid us. So we'll just keep checking if there aren't further tracks. Listening for birds a lot now, trying to see if we can hear them alarm calling. Watching where you put your feet. Checking up on the banks here. It would be extremely exciting if we were to come across little Tandy. There she is. There, leopard. Oh, no, that's not a leopard. It's a bushbuck. Please observe Herbert, who thinks this is hilarious. I just saw the spotted thing running. There it is. It's gone away now. Bushbuck. Probably running straight into the teeth of the cat. That was quite exciting, wasn't it? Let's keep going. See how easy it is for these animals to hide from us. You may have heard those birds calling there. Those are Retz's helmet shrikes, quite an unusual bird to get here. You want to just keep looking up. Right, let's head across to Noelle. I think she's had success.
We found our leopard! He's just in front. I'm so excited. You can hear the guinea fowl going. Here you go, everybody. Here is our leopard. Oh, and I've just run over some wild basil, so it smells quite nice. Now, this is not Hasana. I actually think this might be Tingana. It's Tingana. Yep, there we go, Tingana. Looking quite hungry, big dewlap there. So those tracks we saw earlier that I said were about 2 days old, the ones that we first started the show with, pretty sure were for him, and it's not too far from here. Then I had big male leopard tracks here, and I wasn't sure if it was Quarantine or Hasana, but Tingana would also make sense. The other tracks that we showed you in the riverbed are not from him. They're too small. They're from Hasana. He's going to be just through here. I'm just going to see if I can cut around a little bit. Yay, everyone! And I know all of you have been asking, Tingana, where are you? Well, look who we found. Thank you, monkeys, and thank you. There we go, Ferg. That's going to be lovely. Why, Tingana? Why do you have to go that way? Okay, he's going to pop out here in front, and then unfortunately I'm going to have to duck my head and then also turn around. He's going to come right through the open gap there in the middle of your screen. And you all have been asking about him and how is he and what has he been doing. He's just lurking to the right there behind that bush. You can't really see him very well, but if we are patient, he will come right out. I'm going to go quiet for a sec so you can keep hearing the monkeys. There he is. squirrels, monkeys, all going. We're waiting with bated breath. I can just see on the right-hand side of your screen in the middle. You can just see him moving in there. Karma, good question. You want to know how old Tingana is? Karma, we only started seeing Tingana when he was about 2 years old. So as far as we know, he's between 10 and 12 years old. That is our best estimate. I gauge he's actually going to move to the right now. He's annoyed because he's been found out. So the squirrels are going, the vervets are going, and those vervet monkeys were also going. So he's now, see how his tail's curled? He's like, ugh, I've been seen. And as we know, leopards do not always want to be seen. He's gonna walk, thank you, my boy. Let's do this. What I'm gonna do, because he's laid down, is I am going to reverse a little bit. There's a little spot that I can get into, so that we can get a nice front view. Are we ready, Ferg? Okay. Let's just go back here. Now, the tracks that I had this morning during rehearsal, sort of at the last 5 minutes of rehearsal, it would make sense that we didn't find him in those last 5 minutes. I don't know if you guys can see this drainage line that's down here behind me. It's very, very thick, and it's one of those areas where you kind of have to know exactly what you're up to. Oh, this is going to be beautiful, everybody. Are we happy? I'm pretty sure I'm right on that ID. If there's anyone that thinks I've ID'd wrongly, please let me know, but I'm counting the spots. It looks like a 5-5 on either side, and that dewlap is quite large. The only reason why I'm saying triple check is because quarantine was not far from here today, and I have only seen quarantine once. And I've also never seen Tumba. But this to me looks like Tingana. Especially with that little nose and everything. Yeah, and then he's got that beautiful yellow ring and then the blue in the middle of the eyes. And you see how he's got that speckling on his nose? And that dewlap is huge. He's so annoyed right now. Look at him. He's like, oh, everything knows I'm here. The people know that I'm here. The squirrels know. The vervet monkeys know. Oh, everyone, I'm just as excited as all of you. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very excited. Now, since he's been found out, I don't know if you noticed when he walked along, he's not starving, but he hasn't eaten recently. So part of his annoyance is that there's a lot of food in this area. There's nyala, there's impala, there's bushbuck. There's quite a bit. There's waterbuck that are around. So with all of this alarm calling, his ability to hunt anything is shattered until a little bit later, until it gets a bit darker. It's one of the reasons why he's probably lying down now and just sort of waiting for everything to stop staring at him. We've talked about this a little bit the other day, and for anyone that watches the show often, you would obviously pick up on this. We were talking about normal leopard behavior. This is a typical normal leopard. I was moving about in my little concealed fashion, and I've been found out. So they do one of two things in this scenario. They either walk away with sort of ears back and tail curled high, and they just keep going, or they do what he's doing, which is to lie down still in the thickets, and just sort of waiting for the symphony of alarm calls to die down, and then he will move on. And because it's a cloudy, overcast day and the wind is swirling, actually not too far from here, about 80 meters from here, is a herd of nyala, but they haven't started barking, alarm calling, or moving. They're just looking in the general direction where the guinea fowl were calling, and that's because they haven't smelled him or seen him yet. So they'll be hyper vigilant and aware, but they won't have moved off yet. BB, good question. Go and check out his area in Djuma, and he smells that hukumuri male. One of two things going to happen. He's either going to decide, yes, I don't need this piece of territory, and he'll concentrate somewhere else. Or he'll decide, this isn't on, this is still my territory, I do still care about it, come, let's move, let's go. And he'll hunt down that Hukamori male, and they'll have fights. Two male leopards fighting, you can hear it for kilometers. It is hectic. It is absolutely hectic. Actually, epic. There we go for your apple juice game, everybody. It's epic. And yeah, you'll definitely, and it will go on for days and days and days and days, and then it'll dissipate for a couple of days, and then it'll keep going on, and it just depends on which male gives up first, and which male moves on as to see what the end of it is. Now, we have elephant's alarm calling quite a bit behind me, not close to me, but close enough. And remember, Hasana was still seen in this area, and we all know that Hasana, who's Tingana's son, has a little bit of a love affair going on with dear old dad here. They're not always together, it's not like lions, but they do have a tendency to be around each other often. And I don't think it's Tingana's choice. I think it's Hasana sort of seeing him and being like, oh, I like you, will you be my buddy? And Tingana's like, oh, since you're not territorial, I'll allow you to be in my vicinity for now. Can we hear those elephants in the back? I'll stop talking. I think it's too far. Basically, they're going... All right, so I have a feeling if Hasana, well, we know Hasana's in the area, we just haven't been able to find him yet. And because we have Tingana here and we haven't seen him for a while, I'm going to stick here with Tingana for now, and then keep listening to those elephants and see what's going on that side. I might choose to go over and investigate, but we're going to wait and see. And whilst we're doing that, let's head on over to Mr. James Hendry and see what his feelings are about Tingana for today.
Well, before I tell you about my feelings for Tingana, let's have a look at this kudu cow and the amazingly coloured grey sky behind. It's the kind of sky that you like to have at the end of the day. She's alarm calling either at us or probably at us. I'm just looking at Herbert. Herbert says yes. I don't know about that. It could be the leopard. You can't hear it probably. It sounds like a dog barking. Could easily be just at us, but we are close to where those tracks were with Tundi, close to Tundi's tracks. Okay, while we talk about that, Tingana, magnificent male leopard. I must confess, he and I have never had a particularly good relationship, or not a bad relationship. We just haven't had much of a relationship. I don't know why. He's never been my particular favourite. I've never sort of objected to him at all. We're pretty sure that the kudu are alarming at us. Herbert says, let's pull out of this area. Not that I think he's unpleasant at all. Lizard, skink, quickly Senzel. That's not something we see very often. I'll get on to Tingana again, but what's really cool about this, and I think it's a stripe-bellied lizard, if I'm not mistaken. It's lost its tail. It's got a new tail. So clearly it had a bit of a run-in with a predator, and you can see its new tail beginning. Isn't that cool? Stripe-bellied skink. They're so gorgeous when you see them in nice light. And you spend a bit of time appreciating the detail in their scales. Beautiful. He's got little gold eyelids, as Louise says. Louise is directing at the moment, everybody. Right, back to Tingana. It is, however, hugely exciting for me now that he's back, because what I really dislike is when an old boy sort of gets too old to carry on doing what he's doing. And it's one of the great joys of watching Roger Federer these days playing tennis, is that he keeps smashing people who are much younger than him. Tingana, and I'm pretty sure he's moved south because of the pressure being exerted by this Hukamori male, who I don't think is particularly young. I would have said he's about 6 or 7 years old from the pictures, so he's in his prime. Tingana just coming to the end of his prime, and so I wonder if he won't do what Mvula did in the face of pressure from Tingana and just kind of go into a quiet retirement, stop marking territory, just carry on kind of living, but not necessarily holding a territory. I wonder if he won't carry on doing that. I also wonder, and I think Tristan's little theory on this is quite interesting. He said he thought Tingana may be quite sick. He spent 2 days under that bush where I saw him last, near Chitwa Lodge. Then he spent a day in the lodge itself, 2 days in the lodge, one in the bar and one at the spa. I'm not joking. And then he was seen disappearing off towards the west. And what's interesting about that is that he didn't eat in any of those 4 days and he had no injuries on him. So it's not like he'd had a big fight and he was scarred, unless there was something internal that we couldn't see. And I wonder if he didn't catch some kind of sickness from something or other, and maybe that's, left his body now. He's managed to get over it, and now he just needs a good feed and he'll be back to his best. I don't know, it's going to be fascinating to watch to see what happens. But I always like it when a young interloper comes in and gets his pipes cleaned, as they say. His pipes cleaned. Good. Let's go across to Tristan. I'm sure he, with all his vast leopard knowledge of this area, will have something interesting to say about the situation.
Well, James, other than being thoroughly excited at the fact that Tingana is back and around and that he's looking okay, is really not much else. I think it's very cool to see that he is around. Now I need to cook the car in gear, otherwise we're going to just roll forward. And so it's amazing that he's back. I'm super, super thrilled with Tingana being back. It means that there's at least some hope for a better protection of our females and their cubs. And hopefully he comes back and sorts things out and sets a boundary for this male, because at the moment I'm busy tracking Hukumuri male, and he is mobile right through the central parts of Djuma. We've crossed over Ingwe Alley now, and his tracks are coming south towards Pangolin Track and Chelapan area, but I can't find him coming out anywhere. So he seems to be somewhere on my left-hand side, still in this thicket, but we've just stopped to listen to some alarm calls and various other things. Now, as much as I want Tingana to be around, I must be honest, I quite actually like this Hukumuri male. There's something about him that's quite scary and quite kind of, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because he reminds me of Lamula. Now, a lot of you might not know who a male leopard called Lamula is. Lamula was a dominant male around, he came in at around 2011, end of 2011, beginning of 2012, and settled in quite quickly. And he was the dominant male to the south of us on Hofmann's, and then a little bit further to the west for about 3-4 years, and then he just disappeared after Anderson had a bit of a interaction, is what we'll call it for now. And the reason why I say he looks like Lamula, I've got two pictures for you, and you guys can tell me what you think. Right, so the first picture we've got here is the Hukumuri male. So let's just pull that forward. So you can see he's got these kind of orangish colored eyes, pink nose, quite a round, bulky face, big shoulders, but he's kind of, I don't know, there's something about him that he's got a bit of a sort of attitude about him. Now, the next picture I'm going to show you is the Lamula males, which is that one. So do you not think that those two look incredibly similar in the way they sort of their appearance? Both of them have quite orange eyes, both of them the pink nose, and very rounded, serious heads. And so I wonder if this Hukumuri male is somehow linked to this Lamula male, and wonder if maybe he's his offspring, or was it a same mother situation, because Lamula also arrived in exactly the same circumstances. Mysterious, just got here, was skittish, no one knows where he came from, and I wonder if maybe there's a female just on the edge of the Sabi sands in the Kruger that's producing males that look very similar. Would be interesting to know. But it's up to you guys. I don't know what you think. Maybe you can let me know, #SafariLive, what you think of those two males and whether they're not similar. And like I say, it's good news that Tingana's around. Hopefully again, and leaving everybody kind of settled right back down. The other exciting bit of news is that James found tracks for Tundi and Cub. That's also very, 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 very good news to hear. While we were following this Hukumuri male's tracks as well, we also had tracks for a female coming south too. So I'm not sure who that could be. Lorimer, you're saying if a male leopard is feeling less confident, will he mark less? I think that's what I got from that. Sorry, the guys are talking quite a bit about a buffalo herd on Buffalo's Hook. But maybe not. You saw with Mvula that as soon as he kind of felt like his territory had been lost, he no longer marked at all. He urinated and defecated, because obviously that's natural and he has to. But territory. A little different to what we see from Tingana and even this Hukumuri male. When I followed him this morning, again for a better part of sort of an hour and 45 minutes, he was in fact almost he could find on the edge of a road. He scraped all the way along. So younger males that are pushing their way in, most certainly when they're establishing a territory, are going to mark really heavily, and then you're going to get a situation where you're going to get older males like Mvula that are going to slowly decrease their amount of marking because of the fact that they are now being pushed out and are starting to become nomadic. So it just depends on where they are in life. So I suppose, yes, as they get older and as they get pushed away, so scent marking becomes a thing that they stop doing, and they regress slightly when the newer males start pushing them out. Right, we're going to try and see if we can find this Hukumuri male. I think it would just be amazing to have Tingana and this male on drive at the same time. So while we try to do that, let's send you back to the male that has, I'm sure, filled many with some joy, and that is Tingana.
Tell me when. Hi everyone, we're just moving back just a little bit, so he has moved and we didn't want that tree in your way. We're on this funny little slope. We've managed to sort of create a little nook for ourselves, and he is calming down. He's not as bothered. The monkeys have stopped going. The only thing that's still going is the squirrels. Now I believe some of you could hear that crazy elephant in the background. I've got another vehicle that's joined me in the sighting, and she came past where that elephant was, and she couldn't see anything that it was chasing around. It just seems to be having a moment. But we'll keep our ears and eyes open, that is for sure. Joy, very good question. You want to know, where is Tingana in relation to the new leopard? Joy, as the crow flies from where I'm sitting, I would probably say 5 or 6 kilometers. What do you think, Ferg, from here to the, maybe a little bit more to Treehouse? If the crow flies?
That direction.
Yeah, north. It's due north from us. Sorry. There's Ferg's finger. So where's Ferg? Ferg, put your finger back. Where's your finger, Ferg? There. Okay, so that's north, and that's where the Hukumuri male would be. And I'm going to say at a minimum 5 to 6 kilometers, but nothing more than 8. Thanks for your finger, Ferg. We should put a little face on it, like a little leopard face. I'll draw it on later. But not close enough for them to hear each other, and not close enough for them to smell each other. Tingana would have to go towards his territory in Treehouse Dam area, where we've seen him often, to know that fighting with guests maybe 2 or 3 times in my career, and then in total maybe about 10 times, and they're extremely memorable. They are not nice to each other. I've also seen 2 males walking up and down in a sort of 10 meter, about a 10-yard span, and on an invisible line in the middle of a road, up and down, hissing and growling at each other, neither of them wanting to get across to the other side, but neither of them really enjoying that each other is there. There's spitting, there's snarling, growling, and when those claws come out, it's pretty hectic. There is a video that's on YouTube. I can't think of the name just now, but there was a release of a leopard that had been eating cattle and things, and they caught it and then re-released it somewhere else so that it would be away from the cattle. But the guys that let it out didn't do it properly, or well, I should say, and there's a clip of that leopard getting out of the container and in sort of a split second coming around the side of the container and getting his paws into the half-open window on the side of the bucky, on the side of the truck. I'm sure some of you could YouTube it now. That will show you the sort of speed of a leopard's action. Now, if you were to combine that with it being leopard on leopard, it's extremely fast and quick and very, 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 very loud. There goes our elephant in the background again. Child of the universe, that's actually a very interesting question. You want to know, would a male leopard defend a cub that it had fathered? So I'm assuming you're wondering because of Tandi's young cub, who is the daughter of this male here. First, that the daughter of Tani at the moment, the little one, the 3-month-old one, Tani doesn't want Tingana near that little cub any more than she wants Hukumuri near that cub. That cub's too little. I've seen male leopards go to an area where their sired offspring are and kill them and eat them. Okay, so it's not the same as lions. I've also seen them go into that area and the mum chase them away. When they're little like that, they don't want to be around. I have seen mums with their sort of 6, 8, 9, 10, 15, 18-month-old cubs, all those different ages, on kills with the fathers. The older they get, the more relaxed they are around them, especially in an area like this with a higher density, a higher population. But remember, leopards in general are solitary and territorial, both males and females. They do not work in a pride system like lions. They prefer to be on their own in general. So it's not a good scenario either way. Now, you will get different guides who've had different experiences regarding males, leopards, and their offspring. Those are the experiences I've had, mixed in with reading material. It's a long time. It is very, very, very different from lions. So let's say for some instance, Tundi was around with her small cub and the Hukumuri male and Tingana both rocked up and then there. Tundi would be fighting off both those males and trying to run away with her cub. Just in general, she doesn't want to be a part of any of that. If Tundi didn't have her around. Remember, she only wants Tingana around when she's ready to mate. So she will only really want him around in the next year and a half, probably around in there, about the next year and a half. Other than that, she's not that keen to be that interactive with him. And that being said, I have once seen a female leopard with a younger cub, about 9 months old, and a new male moved in, and she was mating with him. And it was more to do with sort of trying to keep him happy and sort of away from, she was distracting him pretty much. And I've seen female lions do the same thing. Shamal, you would like to know how I think Tingana is looking. I think Tingana is looking very good. I think that he could use a meal, but he is not starving. He doesn't look too thin. He doesn't look emaciated. He doesn't look like he's in any pain or anything like that. He's a healthy looking male leopard. Oh, he's even got a little claw out for us. Really, Lou's just saying in my ear that claw's been sticking out like that for a while. I've seen before where sometimes the protraction is interrupted and then it can get sort of stuck like that a little bit. So it's possible that he had an injury and then now it's just sort of grown some scar tissue and it's just going to be that way. Interesting. Thanks, Lou. Lou is one of our directors, Louise, and so she obviously directs us from Final Control. So she gets to see everything that all of the presenters do always. And it's interesting because all the directors build up memory bases because of the amount of content that they look at, very similar to all of you viewers. So I don't always get to see what Tristan sees because I'm in my own vehicle with my own camera. It's nice to see, it's interesting, and then we share stories. She tells me over her radio into my ear, and then I get to share them with all of you. That's also how the questions come through. Alright, so let's head on over to James, and maybe we'll ask James what his experiences are with male leopards and their cubs or not their cubs. James has been guiding longer than I have. He also has had loads of experience with leopards, so let's see what his thoughts are, his stories.
I've actually never had an experience with a male leopard and cubs, I don't think. No, I don't think I've ever seen a male leopard kill cubs. I've just heard about it, of course, and it does happen very much. Now, we're sitting here at Twin Dams. We have found no further sign of our leopardess or her cub, and with the light now starting to fade, a really quite ominous sky floating over, we're going to start making our way back towards home. Let's quickly have a look at this tree, which is one of my very favourite trees at Djuma. It is a jackalberry tree, and what is so special about it is the way that it has grown, all twisted. And I imagine that it must have been twisted when it was very young. And it's just carried on growing around in that sort of circle into this magnificent organism that sits in front of you there. It really is quite something, and I wonder the stories it has to tell since it was a tiny little thing. Now apparently Hukumuri-san is coming down this way from Chalapan. Come this way on the road, Hukumuri-san. It will be exciting to see him. We will carry on this way. Come, Tenzo. Hukumuri-san. I'm sorry about that, everybody. I just love the name Hukumuri. It sounds like a Japanese samurai. I'm sure not to any Japanese person. I'm sure it doesn't sound like that at all to them. And I need to check the translation because we were discussing it today. And as Tristan said to you, it basically means chicken muti, or chicken medicine, as far as we can work out. Huku, chicken, muri, medicine. So his name means chicken medicine, which I think is a very, very odd name for a leopard, chicken medicine. So we're heading towards Chalapan, which is where Tristan says he last has the tracks, coming south down this road. Maybe we'll bump into him. I wouldn't mind seeing him on foot. I must say I wouldn't mind seeing him at all. Wouldn't like to run into him in the dark, though, with his sort of slavering chops. And thank you very much for those of you who have tolerated my attempt at humour, trying to pretend to be the samurai Hukumuri-san. I'm assuming those of you who did find that amusing were certainly not Japanese-speaking people. I don't think I can make the sound effect, Louise. You mean the sound of withdrawing a sword? Stop. Let's look at the bird. Now, these Wahlberg's eagles fascinate me because... No, I'm talking rubbish. No, they do fascinate me.
Hi everyone, so sorry about those technical difficulties. It does happen from time to time, especially if we get into areas that have a little bit of a leafier vegetation with our bushwalk equipment, but also it sometimes happens on our vehicles as well. We have these little warthog antennas at the back that stick up just like warthogs' tails do as they run away, and the way that they project the signal, amazingly, it still amazes me how much leafy trees and an abundance of leafy trees can stop a signal off of those aerials, but it does happen. I just find it interesting, which is why I'm mentioning it now. Now, as you can see, Tingana hasn't really moved, but that's okay. We have gone, well, we've been having rehearsals. When's the last time we saw a leopard, everybody? Because I know it's been a few days for me. The last leopard I saw was Hassana when he still had that Diker kill on Gowrie, Maine, which I think was about 4 days ago, if I remember correctly. And we've been tracking Tandi up and down, in and out for a couple of days now and haven't seen her. So it's exciting that James has tracks. So hopefully tomorrow morning in rehearsals we will be able to catch a view of her and keep the view for afternoon drive tomorrow as well. That would be absolutely fantastic. Now I'd be interested to know from all of you viewers, who is your favorite leopard that we get to see? So we have Old Man Tingana, we have Mvula, who is my favorite. Hukumuri male, I just like saying his name. Hukumuri! That's what Seb and I were doing the whole day on drive the other day. Hukumuri! I haven't seen him yet, but he is an interesting looking character. And then of course our precious Tandi and her little one, and Shadow, and hashtag not Barbara. And Tamba, I haven't seen Tamba yet. And then of course our little Princess Sana. Out of those leopards that we see on a somewhat regular basis, if you have a favorite and you want to send that through, I'd love to hear from you. Hashtag Safari Live on the Twitter, or put it through on the YouTube chat. Our squirrels have stopped. All right, everybody. Tristan's broken rusty. Tristan, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Wendy's just gotten over all of her sicknesses. And James has had to pack up bushwhack, unfortunately, with his technical difficulties, it seems to be a little bit more than just signal. So he's going to head home. So I hope all of you are happy to be with me for a little while. I'm happy to be with all of you. Super good question, Brett. You're asking how do we tell the difference between male and female leopard. So there's a couple of ways that you can do that. You can do that by, do you remember when we first saw him? If you had been with us when we first saw him, which I'm hoping that you've been watching the show throughout the afternoon, he had something called a dewlap that I mentioned, and it's a big flap of skin hanging down on his neck. If you think about older humans, you sometimes get jowls the older that you get. It's sort of like the jowls of the leopard world. Females tend not to get them, and males get them. And the older they get, the bigger and thicker that dewlap is. Part of that is to show their virility and their good genetic material, and part of it is to just make them appear thicker and bigger. A dewlap on something like an eland, which is the largest antelope species we get in sub-Saharan Africa, that is bigger on the males. The females do have it, but that also helps with thermoregulation, so the heat regulation in the body. It's not the same with leopards. It has more to do with sort of testosterone flow within the body. Female leopards tend to be thinner and more slender, and males there. So Tingana is a good size male. He's not the biggest leopard I've ever come across, but he is a good size. I'd probably put him up between 80 and 85 kilograms. The biggest male I've ever seen was pushing past 95 kilograms. So we're looking at about 180 pounds to about 200 pounds. Someone like Hassana, our little prince, is going to be closer to about 65, 70 kilograms, so about 150 pounds roughly. Something like a female leopard in this particular area where we are, they're going to be anywhere, when they're fully grown, from 55 to about 60, maybe pushing 65 kilograms, but that would be a very big female. Cape leopards that you get in the Western Cape in the Cedarburg Mountains, they range around 25 kilograms. They're much smaller. They've got a completely different habitat, much lighter, and I wouldn't say shorter by a huge amount, but they're definitely more slender. So obviously where a leopard is can also determine the size of that leopard. I think the biggest leopard I've ever seen was just north of here. His name was Bumba Niati, which means kill a buffalo, and he was about 95 kilograms, and he used to take out small to medium-sized buffalo. He was hectic. And with the vehicles themselves. Most of the time when leopards walk past you, they'll take a sort of glance and then they'll move away or just ignore you completely. This leopard used to routinely stare at you, your tracker, and every single one of your guests when he passed by, but stare with intent. He's an interesting male. Mia, Chris, Julie, and many other viewers are saying Hassana is their favorite leopard. I also enjoy Hassana quite a bit. I feel like a lot of people really connect with Hassana because his mum died when he was so young, and so you got to witness the perils he had to go through to make it towards adulthood. And he's not fully grown yet, but he's well on his way to being a big, beautiful male leopard. I also enjoy him quite a bit. I just have very fond attachment to Mvula just from seeing him on and off for years now. Oh, that's the story I wanted to tell everyone. So this afternoon, we guides usually nap between sort of like 1:30 and 2:30, or sort of 1:30 and 3. That's after many years, that's sort of our nap time. It doesn't always work out that way. And today I didn't really manage much of a rest, so I decided to go through some old photos. And I have been trying to find these photos of a young male leopard that I took in 2013 because they kept niggling the back of my memory, and I finally found them, and I have labeled them as Tundi's son. So this leopard would have been about 2 or 3 years old in 2013. It was a sighting on Gowrie, Maine, on the western side of Twin Dams, I would say, right around in there. If I'm remembering correctly, it was some time ago, and I'm getting older. And he has believe a 2 on the left-hand side. I'll have to check on the right. I'll try and remember to post it on my Instagram. You all can have a look. But I was chatting with Lou about it, and Lou is thinking that it was possibly Bahuti, one of Tundi's male cubs that used to be around. But I'd be interested to know once I put it up, and I'll try and put it on my phones for those of you that don't have Instagram and show it to you tomorrow afternoon, who this male would have been. And it was interesting. I wasn't working in this area at that time. I was just visiting and on a little bit of a game drive. Debbie in Vancouver, thanks for the giggle. You're saying your favorite leopard is whichever one happens to be on screen. Debbie, that's a very good way to put it. That is a very good way to put it. I'm enjoying the bird sounds in the background. There's lots of wind rustling through the bushes as well. Our crazy elephant has moved on. Whatever was perturbing him has stopped perturbing him, and he's carrying on with his day. And just as we were discussing earlier, Tingana decided that there was too much hurrah around his arrival. And so he's started to rest, as he's been for most of the time we've been with him. And notice there's no more squirrels, the guinea fowl have moved on, and the vervet monkeys have completely stopped. And that's the point. That night, and his prey species cannot. It behooves him to do this, because I do think he's on the hunt tonight. I do think he'll kill something this evening. Now remember, they're not lucky with their kills 100% of the time. Excuse me, I'm just going to cough. 100% of the time. I would put a leopard success rate anywhere, depending on the leopard and the habitat they're in, anywhere from sort of 45%, maybe a little bit higher, maybe up to about 60%, but that's really pushing. I'm being very generous there. Lions usually top off at around 30-35%, so leopards are a little bit better. The highest success rate for cats is actually with the smaller cats. The serval reaches up around 85-87%, but also what the serval hunts, including the mice and the birds that it hunts, can sometimes be slightly easier, although I've seen serval going after small springbok, baby springbok. I've also seen caracal, another small cat that we would get in this area. Not that we get springbok here, this was on another property that we did get them on in the Northwest Province, but I've seen full-grown caracal going for medium-sized impala. So even though small cats can do things bigger than, say, a francolin or a guinea fowl or rodents. And a caracal success rate, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's probably just below a serval. Anna, good question. You want to know what is the largest prey that I think Tingana could take down? So Anna, I'm just going to put a little bumper to my answer here and just remind everyone that just because it is prey doesn't mean that a predator will hunt it. Predators have specialities. Like for myself, I cannot bake worth anything, but I am very good at making homemade pasta, and I'm very good at making other things. So because I know how to do that well, that's what I tend to cook more. And if I bake, I don't succeed. So with a leopard, they have prey species that they know how to take down, and other ones, they could possibly do it, but it's going to be a little bit trickier, a little bit harder. Oh, thank you, sir. I love when you get up like this. So for Tingana, he could very possibly take down a baby giraffe, but he would have to know how to do it and have also the confidence to do it. See his little thin belly there? No, he's not starving, but he does need a meal, that is for sure. He's not limping anymore. I know some of you are asking that question. So I think a small to medium-sized water buck would be a good bet for him. And then I also think, he's just walking behind us here, I also think if he had the chance of a brand new baby giraffe, that wouldn't be off the market at all. But I've only seen him really hunting things like duiker, steenbok, and impala. And so that to me seems to be his preferred. He would do well with a baby zebra, baby wildebeest as well. So Tristan apparently is limping around, and he's going to take over for a little while I move around and we try and keep up with Tingana. So let's head on over to him.
We are indeed. We are limping because Rusty has pulled its normal TV trick, which is to have a problem with its clutch pipe. So we have no clutch whatsoever. I'm luckily in low range seconds, so I don't actually have to worry about driving too much, and so I can just kind of keep our intrepid explorers on foot. Now I would stop, but I can't stop, because if I stop I can't start the car again because of the lack of the clutch. It makes it a little bit more difficult. But there goes James and Herbie, who are looking in far better fettle, there we go, we'll get there eventually, than what Rusty is at the moment. But in terms of our... Oh, so I hear their battery died, and that's why we had to leave James and them, and they can't unfortunately do any more segments because their battery is no longer working. So this is the defeated bushwalk team walking home like that. Wouldn't it have been nice if Hukamuri was just walking in the road like these three obliging gentlemen? That would have been very pleasant. Definitely. Now, in terms of Tingana, just now we were talking about Tingana, and Noel was saying what size prey he can bring down. So personally, I have seen Tingana bring down about just over a year-old giraffe, maybe even closer towards 2 years. It was difficult to say exactly how big it is because it's quite a large individual, and he brought it down and fed off that. And then I've seen him also take 2 wildebeest that were about 2.5 to 3 years old, so those are also quite large. So he does specialize in quite big things. That was when he obviously was a little younger than what he is now. In his heyday is when he was specializing in those things, but he did actually bring down quite large animals. So he likes those. He likes warthogs as well. Always used to enjoy hunting warthogs. Aardvarks, for those of you that haven't seen the video of him chasing an aardvark, he has killed a few aardvarks in his time. I think 4 or 5 now is what he's on, and so he's done quite a few of those too. Now, in terms of this male, this Hukamuri male, he's given us the slip here at Chelapan. He drank water at Chelapan, and Herbie told me that both he and Rex checked Chelapan this afternoon. No tracks for this male, so his tracks are very fresh at the pan. Where they've gone, there's James waving. Yes, look at that, very handsome figure of James Henry waving again. There we go, look at that. Oh, and he's disappearing behind the bush. There we go. It's very, very rare specimen. And there's our ever so fashionable Senzo. Hang on, actually, I wanted to show Senzo's pants, because look at those pants. Those pants are as tight as they get. How he's managing to walk around, I'm not quite sure, but those are the tight pants that Senzo has. And like I say, how he's doing any camera work by when he has to squat, I'm not quite sure, because I was convinced that those were going to tear on his afternoon bushwalk and that we were going to see Senzo walking back with a big fat hole in his backside. But it seems as though they've managed to survive, and Senzo seems to be more limber than I gave him credit for. Okay, well, one last ditch effort along Pangolin track here. Maybe Hukamuri male is somewhere in this general vicinity. I'm not sure. We're going to try and see if we can get this right and see if he pops out onto the road somewhere as we limp our way back to the workshop to do a pipe replacement on Rusty. It shouldn't take too long, so it's not a huge job. It's a 5-minute job and then everything will be fine. But I think... So First Lady, as I've mentioned a few times, we have no idea where Hukamuri first comes from. Nobody knows anything about him. Nobody knows where he's from. Nobody knows kind of what his lineage is, how old he is, any of those kind of things. We have no idea. He's just arrived on the scene, and it's not uncommon for male leopards just to arrive. Remember, the Kruger National Park is a very large place, and there are lots of leopards that lie off our eastern boundaries, and they arrive here and we have no idea. I mean, they could have been born to any of the females that are in the Kruger area, and we unfortunately just don't know and don't get lucky in terms of seeing them. So, you know, him and work out where he's from, but for now we have absolutely no idea who he is or where he's come from. He's just kind of appeared on the scene, and he was very skittish to start, and then he's all of a sudden started. It'll be interesting. Maybe someday, somehow we'll figure it out, but for now he's still an enigma and a mystery in this area. And so while we kind of contemplate the mystery of the Hukamuri male, let's send you back to our old statesman Tingana in the hope that he's going to come and chase this male away.
Let's come down inside the drainage line. We've just managed to get this little bit of a view. Notice how pricked forward his ears are, and he's smelling. He's lying down in there. He's interested in something. Earlier, I was saying that there was a herd of Nyala that wasn't far from him. So I think that there's definitely something in the area that he either wants to chase or hide from. To me, it feels more of something like he might possibly want to eat. You see that interest on his face there? So I think we're gonna sit tight as much as we possibly can, and try and have a look. Unfortunately, just in front of me, it's very, very thick, so I can't really see. It could be impala, could be nyala, could be bushbuck. It was also interesting hearing Tristan say he has seen Tingana at one point take down a year-old giraffe, which is quite a large giraffe. So we do know that he can do it. His confidence level is there. So that's good to know. I've also noticed over the years of guiding, especially with some of the leopards that I've worked with for many years, that sometimes their taste in the type of prey that they go through changes, similar to how humans go through different things that they enjoy to eat. And also the older they get, the more confidence they have, and then when they get too old, sometimes it's harder to get those larger prey species. Aiden, who is 6 years old, sweetie, you want to know, how does Tingana take a bath? So Aiden, you'd be lucky to know he does not have to go inside of the water to take a bath. He gives it to himself. So he takes his very rough tongue and he licks himself. And he tries to get around as much as possible. Sort of move his body and lick around all of his body parts, including his boy parts, and getting all nice and clean. But a lot of the cleanliness that he needs is very different from our human cleanliness. All right, he's up. Sorry, I'm going to cough again. He's down again. There's definitely something here that's interesting him. The wind's blowing directly in his direction. I really can't see anything that's here, but he's super keen. You can see how thick it is in front of me. And unfortunately, because he's gone down a little bit farther into that grass, I actually have nowhere else to move. So if you all are happy to stare at the grass with a little bit of leopard in it, I'm happy to show that to you. We could also just do a little bit of a outward view like this of the drainage line, just to show you how easy it is for a leopard to camouflage itself. That grass that he's underneath right now is maybe 10 inches tall. He's very flat at the moment. Oh, the anticipation is killing me. Okay, it looks like he's lying a little bit more flat than before. Now, he was interested, but the way that he's lying down inside that drainage line has changed. So whatever he was smelling before has not piqued his attention enough to keep being as vigilant as he was. I think he's going to have a little bit more of a nap. So everyone, we have a couple of choices. We have a few minutes left of drive. We can sit here with him and stare at a few rosettes in the grass. Or, if you would like, I can do a little bit of a loop around this area and see if there's anything that might be lurking close enough to him. And I'm happy to do either. I'm happy to sit here with our teeny bit of a leopard, and I'm also happy to sort of move around a little bit and see what's potting. So send those through #Safari Live or on the YouTube. I'm still convinced Hasana's around somewhere. Not that he's around somewhere where I could pinpoint to you right now where he is, because we were obviously looking for him for a long time. But that's also a possibility of what he's smelling. I can hear alarm calls from Nyala, but they're very far off. On the other side of Chitwa Lodge. All right, it seems as if the majority of you would like to stay. Very happy to do that. And we can always see what happens in the last couple of minutes. Those nyala that are barking by the lodge, I will keep an ear out for, and if I think that it's getting a little bit more intense, I will let Lou know that I just want to investigate. But I think for now, we're gonna stick here with our good old Duke of Djuma and his breathing belly. I'm still so amazed at their camouflage. We can see him now, obviously, and it's sometimes easier to see them with the green grass and the contrast, but I have to say, I know Scott was telling a story the other day where he was tracking a leopard on foot. I think he actually said he got hopped out of the car and was looking at tracks, and then all of a sudden it was either quarantine or Tingana popped up right there. I've had that happen a couple of times. They're masters of disguise. And they're also super cheeky and super curious as well, the way that they move. All right, everybody, while we're waiting to see if maybe he'll pop up his head one last time, and I just want to say thank you, Tingana. You weren't the last-minute leopard. We did get a nice sort of 45 minutes out of you, so thank you very much, sir. I just want to remind everyone, 4th of February, at 10 p.m. Eastern in the United States live, we are going to be having TV show. It's going to happen after the big game, and it's going to then go for 5 nights. So the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. Our last evening will be the 8th. All of them at 10 p.m. Eastern and all live in the States. YouTube, don't forget, you can still check us out. And we are going to be having the most amazing time. It's going to be us here in the Sabi Sands as well as up in the Mara. So I hope you'll join us. And we're going to be having a game, Safari Bingo. So hopefully someone will win a trip for 2 to Africa to go on safari. I'm also excited to find out who that would be. Now, Tingana, would you mind, please, sir, just maybe lifting your head a little bit for us, if you could? Although it looks like he's going to keep doing his best imitation of a rug and just lying there. So I want to thank all of you for joining us for this evening. Remember, tomorrow morning for Sunrise Safari, we'll be having rehearsals. It is closed rehearsals, so we're going to see you all tomorrow afternoon. I hope you enjoy your evening. Thanks from me and Ferg and everybody else. Cheers.